That's carried. Thank you. Now, what I now intend to do, and the reason that I want to start on item 22 is that we've got a number of interested people in the room who have come back in order to hear what we're doing with item 22. It's unlikely that we will get this matter concluded before we break for lunch, and I apologise to community members for that. But what I do want to do is at least start on some questions and answers on item 22 and maybe some initial presentation from staff so that we've got the item underway. Then my intention would be at an appropriate time to break for lunch and then inevitably come back and conclude item 22 after our lunch break. So if I can start with maybe some initial comments from staff, if that's what's desired, or do we just go straight into questions?
I think so, Drew. Maybe if I could, and if we could bring up on the screen, as a result of the feedback and some of the submissions this morning, staff have worked to clarify the recommendations that we're proposing to Council today. So we'd be happy either way, but we have sought to clarify the recommendations, in particular the point about that there are two separate projects, and previously we used the word in parallel? Concurrent. We've removed the word concurrent. They will both happen, start at the same time, but the earthquake remedial works investigation is proposed that would report back to Council in August, whereas the adaptive planning work is a number of the deputations made this morning, a far longer piece of work, but staff do maintain the view that it's important to start that piece of work.
So this gives effect to, and I don't really want to frame the discussion in terms of the options in the report, but this gives effect to those parts of option 3 that we've heard so strongly are favoured by the community, but at the same time allows the adaptation work to commence and proceed as originally intended, but realising that there's a message from the community that we're wanting to respond to, which is, can you just get on with this and separate out the earthquake legacy issues from the adaptation work, realising that both are important?
Yeah, that's correct. So recommendation 3 up there separates the projects, and recommendation 4 instructs council staff to undertake urgent work on the earthquake legacy investigations project and report back in August 2019 for council decisions as follows. And you'll note that we've included the decisions on estuary edge actions is point 4A. 4B relates to understanding the pre-earthquake state and the risk analysis to identify outstanding needs, and this will include specific actions to mitigate inundation and erosion that addresses earthquake legacy issues. And then recommendation 5 is a separate recommendation, and I appreciate that previously we had them both in the same recommendation, which might have caused some confusion. So a separate recommendation noting that council staff will commence the adaptive strategy work, which will include the following. So we've tried to provide clarity on that. We've left and was supported by a number of the submitters this morning what was the original recommendation 4, now recommendation 6, that the council remains strongly committed to the engagement model of the HOW team.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that commentary. So the status of this at the moment is that this is something that's intended to be moved by the local councillor. Staff obviously have had some input into creating something which reflects what the intention of the community board and I think as expressed by a number of the submitters this morning, and obviously the local council are giving effect to that by way of some wording. From a staff point of view, I'm not asking whether this is your recommended option now, but certainly this is capable of being implemented and worked with were it to be passed today.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, that's great. Thank you. So now with that initial commentary behind us, let's move into a period of questions. Let's see how far we go. I intend to break for lunch no later than 1:15, and if that means we need to take a break in the middle of questions and continue with questions at 2 o'clock, that's what we'll do. Try and keep the questions, if you can, to the matters that we're dealing with in this report and as succinct as possible, and remember that there will be an opportunity for debate later when we get to that point. Yeah.
Amendment is substantially different to that.
So is this not what you're intending moving?
No. No, I'm moving it. I was moving an amendment, and I passed it to you earlier. I've given it to Joe.
Right, okay.
We have not moved substantially from the proposal this morning. We've made some amendments and a note to our recommendation, but certainly this is not an amended recommendation that has gained the favour of our community board members in the audience and community representatives.
Thank you for clarifying that. It sounds as though in that case we haven't arrived at the point I'd hoped we might have arrived at.
No.
It sounds as though we might therefore have some further work to do in the lunch break. For that reason, I would suggest that we adjourn for lunch now, come back at 2 o'clock, by which time, if there is a possibility of getting to a point where there is something that is capable of being agreed between the local community and there's capable of being recommended by staff, we arrive at that point. If not, then we'll just, obviously run a process this afternoon that'll arrive at a decision.
And you can just get the various versions emailed around?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so if we can get everything emailed around so that people know it. There may be some work that people want to do in the lunch break, and I'm certainly happy to get involved in any of that work to get to a position where we've got something that can be put forward that's capable of being agreed if possible. So we'll adjourn, we'll come back at 2 o'clock, and we'll deal with whatever somebody wants to put on the table at that time.